right. Karibu sana. This is the morning cafe kama kawa kama dawa. Tuko hapa kukuamsha. How hot is the coffee where you are? My name is Freddie Limuli.
My name is Anne Odida. Thank you so much for choosing us to keep you updated this morning, even as you go about your day.
Oh yes, the 16th of January 2025. These are the big headlines. Muturi awasha moto ndio habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Aha.
The buck stops here. That's the top story on the Standard.
Aha. Ruto dilemma over Muturi and Nordin. The big story covering at least 80% of the people daily, the front page.
And the Daily Nation, governors fight for bursary cash.
Right.
Which is education.
Matters business, immigration bosses on the spot over insurance tender. That's a big story on the Business Daily.
Thugs in suits. That's the Daily Monitor. That's Uganda.
Big news in Uganda, they say dressed to steal. The new Auditor General's report reveals hemorrhage of public funds in government agencies and local governments, causing billions of shillings in losses. Now, this story is covered on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. It is the biggest discussion there. And kama kawaida, Daily Monitor wamekufanyia hiyo some nice graphics on the front page, trying to break down just how much money is being stolen where. And these figures should not scare you. This is Ugandan money, but it's still a lot of money.
Yes.
35.8 billion shillings lost through shoddy work. Yes. 41.7 billion lost through swindling of PDM cash. 1 billion overpaid to schools or to something else. Yeah.
To schools.
Yes. Very interesting.
Thugs in suits.
Thugs in suits.
We could say this about Kenya.
Wameka watu na masuti, lakini haimaanishi watu wote wakivaa suti wanaiba. Wengine watu wanakuja tu kusoma habari. That's the Daily Monitor. Still in Uganda, the New Vision.
Government releases 15 trillion Tanzanian shillings.
No, Ugandan money.
Ugandan.
This is Ugandan money.
All right. PDM suckers gratuity pensions priorities in quarter 3. It is on page 4 of New Vision.
All right. So at least, you know, some figures can be shocking. If at all you're thinking about Kenyan money. 15 trillion shillings is our annual budget for about 5 years. Yes. So, but this is Ugandan money. Hiyo imeachiliwa tu hivi ya kulipa SACCOs na gratuity na pensions. Their budget is usually hundreds of trillions of shillings. Ni kidogo. Ni pesa kidogo. So that's a big story there on the front page of the New Vision. Other stories, why Health Ministry suspended therapeutic children's food. Uganda, Malaysia talk business, and you have the president there, Yoweri Museveni, with a visiting leader from Malaysia as well. Bees scatter court session. It's a story that finds its way to the front page of the New Vision. Nyuki ziliingia kotini, ikabidi hata hakimu na wengine kama washukiwa wakaomoka. All right, in Tanzania today, at least they're not talking about Kenya.
But they're thriving as always. Youth workforce surges in Tanzania's formal sector, and the latest report indicates a significant demographic shift, with the proportion of young employees increasing from 45.9% in 2019-2020 to 68.77% in 2022-2023.
Yes, and this could just be the same kind of news in Kenya as well, because the youth workforce is also surging, not just in Tanzania, in Kenya. It is, and that's why the government is really trying waende watoke Kenya, waende wafanye kazi uko ugaibuni. This is a citizen in Tanzania. Sema Rita finds 2 billion shillings embezzled from Dar Mosque. 2 billion Tanzanian money though.
Yeah.
Embezzled from a mosque. Hata muogopi hata dini. WHO, yes.
One says 8 die in suspected Marburg outbreak in Kagera.
And this should be worrying.
Yes. And yesterday our DG also addressed it. The health DG also addressed Marburg threats in Kenya.
Some of the initial outbreak of the disease was reported in early 2024, raising concerns due to its rapid spread and high mortality rate, indicating that more cases may be going undetected. This is a big story in Tanzania today. Matters business. Business community showers praise on Dar port efficiency. You know, there's a time some importers will say, no, we are moving to Tanzania, the port of Dar es Salaam. Kama Mombasa is too expensive, we're moving to Dar es Salaam. Wakaenda huko now shida ilikuwa the ability of this port to actually transit from the ocean to land was very slow. So now business community is saying they've improved on the efficiency, which could be worrying news for us as Mombasa port. Tukisalia kule Bongo, tunaangazia gazeti la Mwananchi.
Trafiki Dar Baroni video ya wakaanga na wananaswa wakikusanya kitu kutoka kwa makonda wa daladala. Kamanda Muliro asema wamedhalilisha jeshi na wananchi wafichua maeneo hatari. Habari kuu katika ukurasa wa 4.
Lakini hii si habari mpya. Hapa Kenya tumeona EACC wanapofumania wale trafiki, afisa wa trafiki. Unajua sasa wakisema trafiki ni afisa wa trafiki, afisa wa polisi ndio wanaitwa trafiki. Wameshikwa hapa, kuna picha zao wakikusanya kitu. Hapa Kenya tunasema kitu kidogo. But then again, this is not the kind of story you'd find on a front page of a Kenyan paper. Because in Kenya tunajuanga hiyo ni kitu ya kawaida. Nothing new there. Hofu Mabag ikidaiwa kuua wanane Kagera ni habari ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili. Wanasema Dar es Salaam, taarifa iliyotolewa na shirika la afya duniani WHO imedai kuwa watu 8 wamefariki dunia kufuatia mlipuko wangesema mkurupuko wa ugonjwa. Hapa wanasema mlipuko.
Ama wao ndio wako sawa.
Pengine hao ndio wenye Kiswahili, sio sisi. Ugonjwa unaoshukiwa wa virusi vya Marburg mkoani Kagera. Serikali imesema hivi. Habari zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Masuala ya siasa wameka karakacha kwa ukurasa wa mbele. A cartoon on the front page. Mama Samia Suluhu Hassan anaangalia kiti pale na kuna watu wengine pale nyuma yao. Lakini sasa hizi ni siasa za Chama cha Mapinduzi, CCM. Kazi imekwisha. Mrithi wa kinana CCM ni huyu. Huyu nani? Je, ni mama ama wengine? You know, wako na parliamentary system. Ukiwa wewe ndio mkuu wa chama cha CCM ikishinda unakuwa rais. Hivyo tu, that's simple. Gazeti la Mwananchi. Tutarejelea kuangazia magazeti ya hapa nyumbani kwa kina. Hata tukingoja kuangazia mambo ambayo tutakuwa tukizungumzia leo. State of the Nation, these are the panelists this morning. Wilson Sossion, former SGK NUT and a former MP as well. Stephen Munani, a Deputy Governor, Murang'a County, and Professor Fred Ogola, a governance and economics expert, will be in studio for the main conversation at 6:30. You stand by for that. Oral health care in pregnancy, we'll be talking about that from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. The myths, the do's and the don'ts. You know, some women believe that ukiwa na mimba you don't need to brush your teeth. Sababu the sensitivity. Now that could be a myth. Okay. We'll find out today. Oral health care in pregnancy. Well, that's a serious one. Yeah. Dr. PJ Morioki will be in studio. Do stand by for that. All right. Tuangazie masuala ya anga, hali ya anga hapa nchini, tuone ine gani hiyo. Turejelee hapa. You know, yesterday there was cloud cover throughout and it was so cold in Nairobi to begin with. Imeleta maneno ingine. So let's see what we have today. Yes. A lot of sunlight. Yes, there was a lot of sunshine. I could actually see. Yes, across most parts of the country. Na ni kama kuna jamaa alikuwa hapa, director akijaribu kuangalia mambo inaendaje. Tuangazie hapa Lamu leo tuone. Yes, a lot of sunlight for the better part of the day. You can see a bit of cloud cover for the morning part, but then your cloud inaenda ikipungua. Jua towards the end of the day itawaka, proper highs of 30 degrees in Lamu. So bado kule, right now it feels like 28, but it's actually 26 degrees Celsius. So in Lamu and for the entire coastal line, not much cloud cover today. Let's move closer, and this is Voi. Highs of 32 degrees in Voi. 32? That's very hot. Very. If you're traveling to Mombasa, unajua hiyo inakuanga one of the stopovers. Simama Voi, kunywa maji. Kumewaka huko. Kutawaka. At least today, kuna jua. Yes. Yeah. Kisumu. Ilituepuka jana kidogo. Yes. Now it's 19 degrees. It feels like 21. Highs of 31. Bado kuna joto kule. So it's actually getting warmer across the country. So because Lamu is 30, Voi is 32, Kisumu highs of 31. So leo watu wakunywe maji. Tuende Garissa tuone ifatoli tsaini kula. No. Where. Highs of 36 degrees in Garissa. Hapa hata usivae shati, lakini ukosa kuvaa shati hata skin yako itaungua. A lot of sunshine throughout the day, a bit of cloud cover, not much rainfall expected anywhere. So yes. Hydrate, yeah. And even in Nairobi, if you look at it, lows of 15 degrees, highs of 25, which is a bit warm, even for Nairobi. A lot of sunshine. There'll be a bit of cloud cover around midday to 3 p.m. But then again, the sun will come out again later on. So yes, it is a warm day across the country. Yes. Tukiangalia kama ni Afrika hapa, tuangalie tu because I love this map the way it looks. Tuona kama kuna cloud cover. No, in Kenya, ukikompare na kwingineko, Kenya iko hapa, you can't see any cloud cover. There's more cloud cover in Uganda as compared to Kenya, but once you go to the southern part of the continent, places like Zimbabwe, a lot of cloud cover. Places like Mozambique, the southern part of Mozambique as well. You see this, inamaanisha ile mvua inanyesha huku si kidogo. All right, so that's the weather situation across the country and even in the continent. Let's take a look at traffic situation in Nairobi. Tuone kama usiniambie imepotea pia because now
watu wa Manchester United.
Watu wa Manchester United. Watu wa Manchester United wanaobaya because Arsenal jana tulishinda Tottenham. Na Liverpool wakadraw.
Kabisa.
So mambo inaendelea nzuri. Timu zingine is it number 13? There's a team number 13 or number 17 somewhere there. Wanaitwa ile title mpya wako nayo ni relegation threatened. Relegation threatened Manchester United. Let's take a look at the traffic situation. Pangani interchange is building up slowly. So if you're coming from Thika Road or Kiambu Road, yes, do expect to spend some 10-15 minutes around this area. But after that, Forest Road or Murang'a Road into town is looking good. The eastern part of Nairobi, that's Jogoo Road, yes. Some stretch of red at Makadara and then again at Mbotela. Hii ni ile ya kawaida hapa. But once umepita your area, it is smooth all the way into town. Look at Jogoo Road once you get to Nairobi City Stadium. It is green all the way. Mudhurwa, Machakos bus station, green. Even Haile Selassie Avenue. It's unusual for you to see this. It's green. So you can actually use that to town. Hakuna watu wengi wanasafiri sai. Watu wametulia. Mombasa Road is looking good all the way to town. Nothing much. Hapa ni wapi hapa? Ni Pipeline.
Yes, around further.
Pipeline hapo, yes, towards Donholm. Kuna stretch hapa na ni watu wa matatu tabia mbaya sana. Wakikaa hapo hata mwezi pita. But after that, it's not so bad. Yes. Huko kwingine natafuta areas zenye ziko na red I can't see. So probably eastern part of Nairobi, huko kwingine iko sawa. ABC Place to Town is looking good. So that's the traffic situation. Probably we'll get time and take a look at the traffic later on. For now,
Quote of the day. I can accept failure. Everyone fails at something, but I can accept not trying.
All right, let's come back and take a look at the local dailies in depth. Right, Muturi awasha moto ni habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili Taifa Leo. Wanasema ufichuzi wa waziri wa utumishi wa umma Justin Muturi kwamba mwanawe alitekwa nyara na maafisa wa shirika la kitaifa la ujasusi yani NIS umewasha moto. Viongozi na mashirika ya kutetea haki za kibinadamu yakitaka mkurugenzi mkuu wa shirika hilo Nurdin Haji ajiuzulu. Mmoja wao kiongozi wa kisiasa hapa ni Kalonzo Musyoka, kiongozi wa Wiper, anasema mtu aliyetania, aliyepuuza utekaji nyara na maandamano ya Gen Z, aliyepigia simu mkurugenzi mkuu wa NIS Nurdin Haji na kufanya Leslie Muturi kuachiliwa ndani ya saa moja, William Ruto. Yoni Kalonzo Musyoka amesema, sio mimi. Sema watetezi wa haki za binadamu wataka mkurugenzi wa NIS ajiuzulu, viongozi wa kisiasa watishia kumtimua. Kuna vitisho pale. Habari nyingine zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili, Farah Maalim afurushwa kutoka Wiper. Aliongea wakaambia, wewe bana, hiyo hatuwezi kuwa na wewe kama mbunge au unatuaibisha. Mbunge ashtumiwa kwa matamshi yasiyofaa akiandamana na rais wiki jana. Farah Maalim takumbukwa mwaka jana alitoa matamshi zaidi ambayo alifanya hata vyombo vya habari vikamwambia asije.
Asije tena.
Kero la maji taka Mombasa. Wakazi wa Mombasa na watalii wakumbwa na harufu mbaya katikati ya jiji. Sometimes you go to Mombasa alafu nashangaa hivi ndo mnakaanga nyinyi kweli? Rais Korea Kusini akamatwa. Habari kama hizo utazisikia wapi? Korea Kusini
peke yake.
Rais Yoon Suk Yeol hatimaye jana alikamatwa na kuzuiliwa na polisi. Habari yenyewe kwenye ukurasa wa 8. Unadhania kitu kama hii inaweza fanyika hapa Kenya? Ati rais amekamatwa.
Wapi?
Utaisoma wapi? Gazeti ya nani?
Yeah. You know, kero la maji taka Mombasa, you know, Nairobi is also a stinking town.
Yeah.
We don't have dustbin.
I saw the governor late at night trying to wash the county. The streets. Alikuwa na broom hapo hivi. Na amevaa sports shoes. Nilikuwa nafikiri angevaa
wapi?
Wanaosha na maji na sabuni. Habari zingine pale juu, wakili Judith Ongori afa akitibiwa India. Wakili mashuhuri Judith Ongori amefariki dunia akipokea matibabu nchini India. Ni baadhi tu ya habari. Na vigogo EPL waona vimulimuli. Miamba wa soka Uingereza Man City, Liverpool na Chelsea walijipata kona mbaya. Kuna timu zingine ambazo hata haziwezi pata nafasi hapa, lakini kelele wacha tu.
The Standard, the buck stops here and the ultimate responsibility they see. Now, desperately trying to secure his abducted son's freedom, distressed CS Justin Muturi knew only one person could help, and that is President William Ruto. Yet for majority of parents whose children met the same fate, they lack the privilege that the former Attorney General enjoyed, and instead have had to spend countless days and nights searching for them. Now, rights groups say it is easy for the head of state to end the abductions as the buck stops with him. You know, you asked this question, was it on Monday or yesterday, when you're saying, these are the parents, you know, they don't have the luxury to access state house and tell President, give us our kids. Yes. That is what the Standard is saying. I remember one of the dads crying in court for his son to be released. Good thing is that the son was eventually released. Yes. But this was the AG, the Attorney General, who had access to the president. And they had one-on-one. Akaambia hapa anapigia huyo jamaa. Akapiga simu akamwachilia. If only everyone else had access to the president. Yes. So yes, the Standard says the buck stops here. Akikunywa hii chai akimaliza. Akiweka kikombe chini kama vile aliweka Biblia chini. Alisema abductions will stop. And they say what has been said about abductions, we will stop them. So Kenyan youth can live in peace, but they should have discipline and be polite so that we can build Kenya together. That is President William Ruto during an event in Homa Bay. Yeah. He's also quoted again saying, listen, any child that puts anyone in a coffin could eventually be the first to go in. Don't lie to yourselves that you will put others in a coffin and leave. Listen, I tell you, and I warn you, be careful. That's the president. Ni Standard wameka hapa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Mimi hapana maneno yangu. Me, in fact, I'm just reading verbatim. Vile imeandikwa kwa the front page of the Standard. Lakini uzuri kuna evidence kwa karatasi. Iko kwa karatasi. Yes. Other stories? Judith Ongori still being given a slot there. Rights defender takes final bow. Judy was a family lawyer, and you know she's remembered for suing the government for not implementing the two-third gender rule. When the government put, I think, 30% of women in leadership. One of those very consequential lawyers. Yes. Chan. Second chance for East Africa football. Yani tumechelewesha stadium mpaka ikakuwa postponed. So now it will happen in August. At least the draw happened yesterday. Kenya will be facing some very tough teams in that draw. Find out more on the Standard. I think probably Newman ndo amezungumzia. Hey, Chan intrigues. Second chance for Kenya and East Africa. Na picha tu pale ni zile za kuangazia stadium construction and some of the people trying to see if at all we are doing well in as far as putting up the stadium. Matters education, and there's a very worrying headline on the front page. School fee scandal as heads warn of looming shutdown. Now, even as schools struggle with crippling financial challenges over delayed capitation funds and warn of an imminent shutdown, they reveal details of a troubling trend where public secondary schools blatantly disregard government-imposed fee caps, forcing parents to dig deeper into their pockets. That is on page 4, 8, and 9 of the Standard. All right. Kalonzo to Ruto, quit now over law violations. You know, some headlines, sometimes I say, I don't know how consequential they are when you ask the president to quit. Yeah. Will he really? People Daily,
Sema Ruto dilemma over Muturi and Nurdin. It's a hard nut. If he fires minister, president likely to attract public backlash on the place of truth in government. Because yes, kama unamfuta sababu amesema kuna abductions.
Yes.
Are you saying that you're condoning the abductions? Yeah, he's just complaining about the abductions. While retaining Haji will signal that the spy agency was taking his instructions on youth abductions and disappearances. Na kuna picha hapo ya rais yenyewe anafikiria, wewe, sasa nitafanya nini? Tutafanya nini sasa? Stories on page 4.
And new sugar levy adds more bite to wallet.
So it means the sugar prices are going to go up slightly because of a new levy.
Yep.
Interesting.
And yes, Kalonzo raises red flag on delay in hiring of IEBC.
Now, this is the kind of conversation we should be having.
Yes.
Yes. As we move closer to even the halfway mark of this term, electoral cycle in March, it will be less than 2.5 years to the elections. We still don't have the IEBC.
We should have it 3 years.
At least 3 years.
Yes.
Because there's so many things, and that's just for preparation for elections. Remember now, the IEBC still has a lot more to do. Delimitation and review of boundaries, voter registration, which is supposed to be continuous. None of that has happened. Not just preparing for elections. So, hapa kuna shida. So that is a conversation that continue. Counties tussle with national government over school bursaries. Now, there are a number of counties, in fact, all counties are not happy. Governors are not happy because the Control of Budget said that they should stop trying to get money for bursaries. Education is not a devolved function.
Yes.
It is a function of the central government. So wameambiwa mambo ya bursary counties wa China wamekasirika sana.
And you know the MPs pia wanataka hiyo bursaries iletwe to the national government so that it can be under their watch. Yeah.
Yes. Daily Nation.
Governors fight for bursary cash.
Yes. Education Ministry has drafted a bill to consolidate all bursaries and scholarships. So the battle over the multi-billion shilling bursary schemes has taken a new twist after the Control of Budget stopped county chiefs from administering the kitty meant for students in primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. With Raila Odinga's Orange Democratic Movement joining the fray, I saw a statement signed by all the governors from Nyanza, plus the one in Mombasa. Wamekasirika sana na hii maneno, hawajafurahia. Secretive NIS, who watches over the big brother? They operate in plain sight and have a presence in economic, political, and social spheres of life. Still identifying anyone other than their Director General is a near impossible task. The National Intelligence Service, Kenya's first line of defense against internal and external threats, is possibly the most enigmatic government agency. Yeah, you can read more about the NIS on page 7 of this Daily Nation, and the Director General there, a man on the spot, Nurdin Haji mwenyewe. Huyu ndio wanasema rais alipigia simu akamwambia hiyo kijana ya Muturi waachilia yeye, within 1 hour akawachilia. Sio sisi tumesema. Ukisoma hii story you'll actually find those details there. Yes.
There's an interesting one here. Kenyan once ex-censored. They say platform is accused of publishing very dirty stuff and hate speech.
So huyu lazima kuna shida. Anataka X ikuwe censored in Kenya. Yet, if you talk to Elon Musk, he says that this is a way to communicate, that there's freedom of speech everywhere, and anyone should be expressing themselves. So this is a very interesting story. Do you think that X, for those of you who use X, should be censored or censured?
No.
In Kenya because of hate speech?
Well, you know, Kenya, we have freedom of speech. Yes, and the Constitution, hapo, they hit a jackpot.
Probably when it comes to inappropriate content, pornography and stuff like that, they could be making sense. But hate speech, not so sure. Also, some space on the front page of this paper reserved for this message of transition, Doyen of Family Law's final bow. And they say Senior Counsel Judith Ongori was admitted to the bar in 1988. I was in class 1. Yes. Nimesema nilikuwa class 1 1988. Cameraman hapa anaitwa Mumanya ameshangaa. Karibu niulize if I was a slave.
Karibu niende nje.
Shah wrote exposed as patients stormed ministry. Yesterday, the CS for Health held a press briefing at Afya House.
Yes.
And here kuna watu waliingia pale wakapiga kelele wakasema iko pale. It's a story on the back page.
Very unusual behavior because that is a very, very protected area.
Yeah.
You know?
Hapo Diana Akoth and Grace Njoki Munai at Afya House. The two patients and hundreds of others accuse the Social Health Authority of inefficiency. That story is on the back page of the Daily Nation. Yeah. Walifumania waziri wa wizara ya afya.
Now, Business Daily, they say immigration bosses on the spot over insurance tender. Lobby protests restricted tendering for visitors' medical cover, and procurement watchdog PPRA 6 answers. Now, the public procurement watchdog has backed insurers in a protest against the Immigration Department of a restricted multi-billion shilling tender for the newly introduced compulsory medical insurance covers for foreigners visiting Kenya. And Kenya Airways share price doubles in 8 days on NSC return.
Interesting news.
Yep. Another story there is taxes now account for 46% of fuel prices on hired levies. The amount of taxes on the price of litre fuel nears the 50% mark, driven by an increase in 2 levies in the last prices that will be in place until February 14. And nearly half of real estate companies are not regulated. Yep. 2-bedroom townhouses have highest rental yields.
Oh, watu wanatafuta 2-bedroom sana.
Yes.
Watu wa 1-bedroom siku hizi hawataki.
Townhouse.
2-bedroom townhouses have highest rental yields. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's a story on the Business Daily.
Yep.
Right. Tulikuwa tumeangazia hizi za Uganda na Tanzania, nothing much. Today they're not talking about Kenya. Let's focus on the cartoons now. And this is a cartoon on the Standard, focusing on the CHAN tournament. CAF wamesema this tournament was actually supposed to be last year. CHAN 2024 is the one was to be played beginning 1st of February in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. So naangalia Tanzania wako pale, wako tayari kabisa kwa michuano. Uganda pia, lakini Kenya analala tu pale, ashalewa mlevi, hata stadium hana. You know, this is the biggest embarrassment in East Africa. Remember, we're still to host AFCON, Africa Cup of Nations tournament in 2027, jointly with these other two countries. Sisi bado ndio tuko nyuma. Hatuna stadium. Yes. Tuna snow hapa. Huyu amelewa. Ukiona tu bubbles ni kama amelewa. So let's hope that probably by August we'll have the stadiums, because I understand that the opening ceremony of this CHAN tournament should be held in Kenya. Na sisi ndio hatuna stadium. Wale Simba na Yanga wako na stadium nyingine mzuri sana kule Tanzania.
That is People Daily. Old is gold, and that is President William Ruto. Anajaribu kutoa wali old Kabogo Kiraitu.
Amedip mkono yake kwa pipa.
Yes.
La
political reject.
Ametafuta political rejects wote. Jumwa, Kabogo, Kiraitu, opposition, Kidero, wote sasa ndio wasema old is gold. Na ataendelea hivyo tu. Hakuna new faces.
Anaweka kwa bag.
Anarudisha tu wale anaweka hapo. That's the People Daily. And on the Daily Nation, this is a cartoon.
They left the streets and moved to online streets.
All right.
That is DCI boss. We have IG and the Interior CS hapa.
Anaongea na rais. Na rais ako na naibu wake pale nyuma.
Nordin is just watching.
Nordin kazi yake tu ni kufungua macho kuangalia tu hivi. So anasema vijana walitoka kwa streets. Hakuna maandamano siku hizi. Hata ukiita maandamano watu wachache tu wanatokea. Lakini wanaandamano huko ndani huko wanasema Dutch Royal visit.
Yes. ICC. No, they want to sue President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza pale ICC.
You know, now the problem is if on the streets you use anti-riot police, what do you use online? And probably that is what they should be thinking of. How do you counter this online protests and agitation online? Huwezi hata water canyon huko kwa X utashanga. Hii iko kwa Daily Nation. These are just some of the cartoons and forming the biggest discussions today. Matter sports, education on the front pages. Yes, ukiangalia hapa immigration, lakini hiyo ni business. Education, abductions. Abductions, education pale juu. Abductions, education. Hapa kuna abductions pia. So these are just some of the main discussions. Wilson Sosion will be in studio alongside Deputy Governor Muranga Stephen Munania and Professor Fred Ogola. Do stand by for that conversation.
And oral health care in pregnancy, this is a conversation that you definitely want to hear more. What are the myths, the do's and the don'ts?
All right, so get texting. Also interact with us on our social media handles. On X, our handle is at TV47NewsKE. My Twitter handle is at Fred. Do we still say Twitter? X. My X handle is at Fred Indemuli.
Mine is at Ann_Dide. Stay with Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. Time for us to take a look at the dailies, and this being the state of the nation. On the front pages today, matters education and the continuing debate on abductions and who's to blame, featuring prominently. Governor's fight for bursary cash is a big story on the front page of the Daily Nation. Of course, secretive NIS, following the revelations by CS for Public Service, Justin Muturi, about their involvement or otherwise in the abductions. The buck stops here. That's the fourth page of the Standard. And down there, school fee scandal as heads warn of looming shutdown. The only other story that has and cuts across all papers today is the news of the death of Senior Counsel Judy Thongori, a human rights defender who died in India while undergoing treatment. We continue receiving and sending messages of condolence to the family. Allow me to introduce my panelists this morning. Professor Fred Ogola, governance and economics expert. Karibu sana to TV 47.
Asante sana Fred, just to send my condolences to Thongori, because remember, this is a day that all the human rights defenders like myself are not very happy about, because death has robbed us one of our soldiers. No one really celebrates the death of the soldiers. I want to send my condolences to the family, but also to the family of human rights defenders, that we will never stop. And I'm sure this is something to really celebrate her at this moment. And let us just ask for the things she tried to do for the country, like now independence of IBC and the rest. I think this is the best time that the country can give it to her as an honor, that the things she fought for actually should be streamlined, because death is a moment to reflect about what somebody leaves to the world, especially to her country, Kenya.
Thank you for that. Also with us this morning, Wilson Sosion, a former Secretary General of the National Union of Teachers, KNUT, and also a former member of the National Assembly. Mwalimu Sosion, karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, and good morning, our viewers.
All right. So yes, the big story, and there'll be a lot of discussion about education. But before we get there, of course, the big discussion has been throughout the issue of abductions. Who is responsible? It is part of those stories covered by our reporters here at TV 47. Let's watch one of the stories on the implication of the NIS.
Over the last 6 months, the National Intelligence Service have been on the receiving end following allegations by 2 senior government officials linking them to the murder of abductions witnessed in the country since the June 2024 Gen Z-led anti-government protests.
And all along, albeit quietly, Kenyans have had a feeling that if the police are not doing it, then somebody or some other security agency is doing it. And yesterday, it was like a revelation that, yes, the police are denying, they have always been denying this, and now somebody comes in and throws this a spanner in the works and says, look, my son was abducted by the National Intelligence Services.
In June and October last year, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua slammed NIS boss Nurdin Haji for incompetence before Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi joined the chorus 3 months later to blame the nation's top security organ for the recent abductions.
At my age, I'm not the kind of person to respond to some of it is really very perfunctory.
Security analysts have now shifted the blame to the National Intelligence Service, claiming that the reputation and credibility of the security organ has been dragged into the mud for being a mere political tool for political leaders to settle their scores.
Now we are exposed. People will know that, okay, we have an NIS that is not doing its job, an NIS that is at the call and peck of the political class. So anything they tell us, we'll take with a pinch of salt. We're not believing them. And when it gets to that point, then we are too exposed as a country.
According to security experts, the National Intelligence Service has failed a big one for being silently captured by the executive instead of operating independently as Kenya's principal intelligence agency, tasked with providing both domestic and foreign intelligence.
These agencies have lost their independence to the executive. Nobody is sure about himself. The top police officers, the top in command, are just like a drunkard's cockerel, unsure of themselves every other day.
Security experts are now calling on NIS boss Nurdin Haji and other security agencies to break their silence and come out clean on who should take responsibility of the recent cases of abductions witnessed in the country.
So basically, somebody needs to take responsibility because the National Intelligence Services fall under the Ministry of Interior, where we had Kindiki as the Minister of Interior during that period. We also have the Inspector General of Police, who seems clueless about what is happening because it is a responsibility. You cannot just deny and then not tell Kenyans what you are doing to deal with the situation or to deal with the problem. So all these are people that we should call out, and they should take responsibility for these serious security gaps and security breaches on the persons of Kenyans.
Samira Mohammed for TV47, Nairobi.
It has indeed been the biggest discussion, just who is behind the abductions. Police have been summoned by courts and they blatantly ignored those orders. Now this claim by the CS for Public Service that NIS is actually the agency that is involved in this. Question is, and this is a question that is asked on the front page of the Daily Nation, who watches over Big Brother? Yes, the National Intelligence Service is a very crucial agency for the government in terms of intelligence and the security of this nation. Yet there are serious concerns that that agency could also be under the capture of the political class. Professor.
Yeah. First of all, Fred, I can tell you, I can refer you, if I told you follow me on TikTok, I said it on 1st of January 2025. It's on my TikTok, if anybody dares to follow. And I say that it is Nurdin Haji that is abducting Kenyans and the young people. I'm fortunate to have this intelligence. How I have it, don't ask me. I was just talking to my brother Sosion. Never underestimate a professor who has taught more than 1 million executives in a country. They are actually part of NIS by voluntary, because there's so much we know. Fred, you've seen, I've written a book called 10 Lessons from 1,000 Strategic Plans. Currently, I've done 1,760-something strategic plans. These are intelligence. I've trained the provincial administration. The whole provincial administration, the provincial administration, I've trained the administrative police when I was in Strathmore. Everywhere there's someone I've taught, just like Mr. Sosion as a teacher, everywhere there's someone you have taught. So if you want to know something, you'll know. But that does not mean that somebody started looking for students of mine I've taught and hunting them out. But the fact is that you cannot hunt enough because there are more than 1 million out there whom I've taught to have influence. I know what I know. And I just give a very serious important information there that there must be a budget. For example, if you pick these young boys like Kibet, the ones who are found in Vihiga, you have to transport somebody from here, somebody who should not be seen to be traveling, somebody who do not want to travel in Communicado all the way to Vihiga. There must be a budget for that. Do you know what it means to take someone from Nairobi in a private car to Vihiga? And if you are having a driver, you have to fuel this car. So there's a serious budget that is needed to finance abduction. But I don't think the members of parliament ever pass a budget, this abduction budget. So for abduction to take place, there must be a budget. So where can we have a free budget that cannot be accounted for? It is only NIS. NIS budget, you don't have to report in details. In fact, the best way to kill this abduction now is to ask that the NIS budget must have the rigor of public finance management so that we can know coin by coin.
But is that even possible? Is it even...
I'm trying to say, but if you are given a free hand, isn't it, because of the nature of the work you are doing, and you cannot account for it. For example, Fred, if you have a wife, you give her a budget of 200,000 shillings, and you don't want to know what she does with, isn't it? Then you find that one day they drank alcohol with her fellow girls until she's coming home in the morning at 4 a.m. You continue giving her because you cannot do it. You just stop the money. When we were boys in high school, when you are seen to be taking drugs, your parents could cut the budget. When I was in Seremei Siala, if your parents gave you money directly and you're being seen to be taking some things like Kuber, I remember those Kuber things, what they used to do now, they give the money to the bursar who releases in small doses to ensure you cannot do what you need to do. So according to me, one thing is this abduction cannot take place without a budget. As we speak, there must be a location, people are saying it. This location, they are squads abducting people. They have resources, they have vehicles, they are armed. Is there any abduction squad which is legitimate that can consume a budget? So according to me, the only organization that needs to explain here is NIS. And if NIS do not know, not responsible, then they know who is responsible. So there are two centers there. But let me also just say...
my concern now is on who oversights the NIS, because this is an organization that has eyes but lacks a voice. They rarely come out to speak and even to defend the organization itself. So apart from the politicians or the political class, who would actually oversight an agency that is so crucial to the security of this country? The question is being asked right now, is it really NIS behind the abductions?
I think, Fred, we really need to package our conversation around security so that we are highly measured in our approach, in our understanding, and in getting facts, truth, and data about what is happening. The National Intelligence Service is an established institution to deal with both internal and external intelligence in terms of security of the state. Kenya is one country that is one of the most efficient intelligence services. And the protocol of operations of intelligence services all over the world is almost standard, and Kenya is not an exception. We may not have that privilege as citizens to poke holes and know everything that goes on in that institution, because the National Security Intelligence Service will always report and tender its report to a certain office, that for sure. And the information and the data that they gather will help strengthen security of the country. And Kenya is one of the most secure countries with citizens who are secure. When you talk of the latest events of abductions, those events are being investigated by the police, our security agencies, which even includes the NIS itself. So we cannot expect institutions that really we have given the responsibility to investigate and give us report to do its work while at the same time we are attacking it. You know, I think before we even go to accountability of what NIS does, can we deal with the accountability of other aspects of government institutions? That
Do you
really
believe that the NIS
really
could be open to abuse by the political
class? It is not open to abuse. Those are your own words, and those are imaginations. NIS is a highly structured security organ. And of course, that indeed would be a top-tier security organ.
That is not open to manipulation.
Abuse. Yes, it cannot be manipulated. And NIS or intelligence services all over the world transcend regimes. If you take, for example, the US, the civilians and the public will conduct their politics and elections. There will be new president, a president is exited. But you see, the intelligence service remains in place. And even the intelligence service of Kenya is structured. It has transcended all regimes from Jomo Kenyatta, from Moi to Kibaki to Uhuru. It's at Ruto. It will still transcend. The manner, the genetic coding in which it works and the architecture of how it works will largely remain the same. I'm not aware of any regime that has changed.
I have a question because
Yes.
the issue is, even the police service has the independent police oversight authority.
That is a police.
To check,
That is a
yes.
police.
Even the military has its own structures to check indiscipline within the service. Now, when it comes to the NIS, we seem to have given this organization a blank check. They can do anything.
No,
everything
it
they
is
do
not a blank check.
Is shrouded in secrecy. And there's no way of oversighting any acts of commission or omission on its part. Even when they fail, who checks them?
Fred, I think that it's fair that we correct something here. And I'm an economist. In God we trust, the rest bring evidence. In 2022, July, Kenya was ranked number 42 in terms of the worst insecurity. Now, that was under Uhuru Kenyatta. With what is happening now, do you think we have improved or worsened? So if you say Kenya is the most secure country, in terms of cyber security, we are number 3 in Africa, isn't it? But in terms of security of citizens, where citizens feel comfortable, where you don't watch your eye, Fred, anytime you want to turn, you watch your back at the moment, isn't it? Do you feel, how much comfortable do you feel being in Kenya? How much comfortable do foreigners feel being in Kenya? So at the moment, out of 155 countries which are being sampled, isn't it? Kenya is number 102. Okay. So if you're saying Kenya is among the most secure, by who? And let me answer the question when you're talking about the issue of who watches. If you look at what Justin Muturi has revealed, that case of Justin Muturi reveals something so deep about fit to command. What is fit to command? When Attorney General calls Inspector General, who has no information, who denies, then in calling the president calls NIS, then NIS takes order. In terms of order, Fred, I know security very well. I've taught them. There is what we call order of command, that you don't get command from the boss of your boss. Like, for example, Inspector General can order the Deputy Inspector General, who can call somebody can call an OCPD. An OCPD can give an order to an OCS. An OCS give orders to the officers. You can't have the president giving an order to the head of NIS, who is under Inspector General. This is violation of order. There must be how order comes, Fred. And I tell people, make decisions within your purview. For example, I'm a husband at home. I cannot instruct my wife, my house help. If I can't tell my house help, valisha watoto tuende kanisani. Because my wife can say, actually, we're not going to church. What will I do? See, I've lost it.
Okay.
So there must be an order of command of who gives order. And Fred, there are serious issues. Let me highlight one of them, please. When you look at Museveni arriving in Siaya for the ceremony called Piny Luo ceremony, Museveni arrives with his military. Did you not see those things?
Mm-hmm.
Where on earth does a visiting head of state come with military to another country? That is violation of Kenyan security. Kenya is not safe at all.
Okay.
William Ruto in Washington, D.C. or New York was working with fellow Kenyans being guarded with CIA, and you can't even see them. Why did William Ruto carry the entire Navy and the military to Washington, D.C.? These are national protocols that are being violated. For what end, we don't know.
Okay.
According to me, there are serious security concerns in Kenya. For example, Luos have always complained that sometimes the military or the policemen cross over from the border to attack them in the boundaries, isn't it? Now, when a president of a neighboring country comes with his own military, even Salimia Suluhu comes to Kenya only with her bodyguard, but the entire security and transport is organized by the Kenyan authorities.
Yes.
So the interferences we are getting is too much. And I think the president needs to ask himself, is he fit to command to ensure that the borders of Kenya and inside the country is safe? Because as a commander-in-chief of all the armed forces,
including the
all armed forces, needs to be under his command, and command does not come when he's called. And let me end by saying, let me just
I want to give Bwana Sosion, before we go on a break, I need to give him a chance as well.
This is critical.
Yes.
Justice Muturi also reveals to us the what we call inequalities in this country. Because if you cannot be able to have access to State House right, because Justice Muturi can enter State House without an appointment, isn't it? What about the ones who are being abducted, the Kitengela, the Mololongo 4, isn't it? Now they are still out there. And his son was released in less than 24 hours, isn't it? Some people will be held for 32 days because no one can talk for them.
Okay.
Why don't we have a country where whether you are here, there, and it's the same thing?
Let's give Bwana Sosion an opportunity, because Sosion asked him this question as well. There's a very serious allegation by the CS Muturi against the NIS. This is a high-ranking member of this government. Now, who checks the NIS once they've been accused of a wrongdoing?
Before I comment on that, let me also educate Professor as a teacher.
Yeah.
Professor can be taught. The president is the commander-in-chief of the defense forces, according to the new constitution 2010. And you should know the defense forces. They only deal with external aggression. It is not the commander-in-chief of the armed. And why not the armed? The Police Service Commission is an independent entity, according to the Constitution. That's a fact. And so that its operation is regulated itself. And that is why the president gave the Inspector General of Police the accounting powers so that they can operate independently. And that's a fact for sure. So we should know those operational departures. No. You spoke. Allow me to speak. I think we respect what you call turn talking.
So for the president to call directly the NIS Director General, is that proper?
There is no evidence that he actually did call. Don't let me discuss personal comments of Justin Muturi here. I don't think that
he's the one on all the front pages.
No. I won't. That one I won't. Then number two, if Museveni came with his security personnel, there is nothing wrong with that. He was not coming to attack Kenya.
Military.
He was not coming to attack Kenya. And Fred, let us agree. We are opening up Africa. We are breaking barriers of boundaries. We are allowing leaders to move. There is a citizen movement in East Africa, and including labor and goods, and there are protocols. In fact, we are heading into one federation, one government, one currency.
Okay.
And so we cannot
we have a minute to the break and you still
very traditional and backward thinking that, oh, so and so must not come. That is out. Let's allow free movement. Okay. Let's allow freedom. We want a free country. And for all intelligence services in the world, tell me, who makes CIA accountable? Where is CIA accountable? In the US. You see, there are universal standard practices. Let's see what happens in other jurisdictions. This is the most sensitive security organ.
So they shouldn't be held accountable.
Anyway, it is held responsible. The person who, the National Intelligence Service Director, will always brief the president. That's a fact. They brief the head of state because you're dealing with external aggression, internal aggression. So the person briefed by the CIA director is always the president of the US. And what they discuss with the president of the US is never divulged to the public. And because it is never divulged to the public, you unless there are serious security lapse, that is when there is a public discussion. Is there a very serious security lapse with the NIS of Kenya now? Do we really have?
We don't consider the abductions as serious lapse in security?
But that is not that really is not squarely only the
even
challenge
when the NIS
of the NIS alone.
Accused, even when the NIS is directly accused of being part of those abductions.
No. Let us not buy Muturi's narratives and create a big conversation here, because Muturi is being political.
Should we simply ignore those allegations?
If Muturi wants to walk out of government, simply walk out of government. It's democratic.
Fred, I'll argue
but you
not
cannot
to ask
sit
questions
within
that somebody cannot
government.
answer. You know,
you see the pattern of accusing the NIS. It started with Rigiji, and we are still seeing the same pattern. And from where I sit, the NIS, nobody has come out very strongly to place credible facts of gaps that we have seen with the NIS. These are just general blame games. I don't think we merit even to advance such a discussion.
In an interview, as for example, an expert in governance, there's what you call invalid questions and valid questions. A question that someone has no capacity to answer or cannot answer, or even if they answer you, there's nothing you can do with it, is not worth asking. Like if you ask Mr. Sosion, is there someone who can hold NIS responsible? Then they said that no one. Is there anybody in this world who cannot be held responsible? All of us at least answer to God first, isn't it? And the president appoints NIS director, isn't it? Yet the president is not a commander there. On what basis does the president appoint NIS? Inspector General of Police is appointed by the president, isn't it? Nominated, then appointed. So if he tells me he is not in charge of them, I'm wondering, even the CIA is also appointed by the president. So let us not give rhetorics here. We must give practical examples. Maybe Mr. Sosion has forgotten how teaching is done. That teaching must be theoretical, but also must be practical. And the practicality is more important than theory. Right. And the practice is that whoever appoints you, who ensures that you get your salary, that person is in charge of you. Okay. They don't have to tell you. And I tell you, if the president is not in charge of the armed forces, only in charge of KDF, then I think we need to look at the structure of how this government runs. And
yes, I want us to wrap up that discussion.
I'm ending a point that you dismissed me from, Fred. Let me say for me, how a senior person like Justin Muturi can secure his son shows you something deep-sitting. That even when you want a job in this government, if you don't have somebody that's senior, you don't get it. Even if you just want security, you can't get it. Fred Ogola has been arrested 8 times. I slept in the cell for 8 times. I'm a professor, isn't it? His son is not, probably. But because of where your son is, I'm asking the 53 million Kenyans who do not have a CS in their family, how unsafe are we? So that question for me is so deep. Policemen, the policemen in government, the ones who do cadet who begin with something like the military begins with 24,000 shilling salary. Those people pay bribes of 20,000 to get into the military.
Okay.
So whom you know, this question, we want a government that gives you services irrespective of whom you know.
Okay.
Let us embrace meritocracy and protect the constitution rather than favorism. For me, the favorism that is in this government is amazing.
Final word, because we need to get facts so that we don't use so many words over straight things. What is NIS? What is CIA? You deal with internal and external security. The moment it is external, then it is defense. Defense comes in. And who deals with matters of defense? The commander-in-chief. Mm-hmm. There is a person called commander-in-chief, where all this information and data is deposited. And I think that is a simple lesson that Professor here.
Let's leave that discussion there.
So
on the front page of the Standard, they talk about
what is obvious.
The buck stops here, and they say that it is up to the president. Yes. Now rights groups say it is easy for the head of state to end the abductions as the buck stops with him. We now want to switch gears and talk about something else that features on the front pages, and this time it has to do with education. It is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. They talk about governors fight for bursary cash. On the front page of the Standard, they talk about school fees scandal as heads warn of looming shutdown. It is also part of the stories that were packaged by reporters here at TV47 about this struggle between the county governments and the control of budget in as far as control of bursary funds for schools. Let's watch that story.
County bosses might suffer another blow after the Control of Budget Margaret Nyakango issued a new directive that halts the creation of education fund to support students beyond pre-primary school. Governors have already differed with the Control of Budget, terming the move as illegal to halt issuance of bursaries as this falls under social protection. The Council of Governors insisted that the move by the Control of Budget will deny many students an opportunity to education.
There is already an Elimu Fund Act which the controller of budget uses to allocate, to give money. When we made a budget, the first person who must approve our budget is the controller of budget. As we are speaking, in almost every county, there is an allocation for bursaries, which she approved in July. So, what is this that has suddenly come up?
ODM, through its acting party leader Anyang' Nyong'o, in a statement noted that all the programs in schools, such as school feeding programs and infrastructure, were at risk of collapsing if the move by Nyakango will be implemented. In a statement, the Control of Budget says Section 16 of the Constitution designates that funding of universities, tertiary educational institutions, primary schools, special education, secondary schools and special education institutions falls under the national government. And if the county government wants to offer any education support, then they must transfer the function in accordance with Article 187 of the Constitution. This standoff comes at a time county governments have been accused of failing to properly utilize county allocation effectively. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Is not a devolved function, yet governors are keen to actually be part of the bursary distribution scheme countrywide. Governors, including governors for ODM, actually released a statement yesterday criticizing this move by the Control of Budget. For this conversation, I'm happy that Stephen Munani has made it. Deputy Governor, Murang'a County. Karibu sana, Deputy Governor. Yes. Why are counties fighting for bursary money, yet education is not to any of your functions? We understand health should be your biggest discussion. Why do you want money for bursaries?
Thank you very much. Good morning to all our listeners. I'm glad to join this conversation this morning because, one, the Constitution has given governors a very specific mandate on the devolved functions. And the Constitution is, in most of the cases, has indicated they are what are shared functions between the national government and the county government. Education as a whole is such one of those functions. You have a section of education sector, which is the ECD and the technical training that are part of the county government functions. And then you have the primary schools and secondary schools and universities that are part of the national government functions. However, when you are an elected leader, you have a responsibility towards your people. And at the same time, you have been given a very specific mandate to ensure that you give people an equal opportunity, because you cannot see people suffering in terms of education and not help. So what most governors have done across the country, they have acts of their county assemblies that appropriate funds towards education support.
Funds from where?
From Exchequer. Because remember, the county assemblies have also a mandate to appropriate funds, the ones that are devolved into the counties. You have to go to the county assembly, make regulations, make policies. Once that becomes a county policy and a county law, you can be able to appropriate funds according to that.
So in your own admission, county governments and county assemblies ensure they appropriate money for education.
Yes.
Despite the fact that that is not their function.
It's their functions. Once you have an act within the county assembly that, and the constitution is very clear, that you have given specific responsibility to the county assemblies to appropriate funds according to the policies that are approved the people and according to the constitution. This is such one of those shared functions. Because remember, even Article 187 of Intergovernmental Relations Act indicates that no specific function cannot be undertaken by either the county government or the national government. There is an agreement and there should be a law. For example, you want to expend money in national government functions at the county level. And I'm going to give an example, a school feeding program. School feeding at the primary level is the mandate of the national government. However, as a county government, through a policy and an agreement that is created through the county assembly and the agreement with the national government, we can undertake those functions. Similarly, at the same time, the national government can expend money on devolved functions with very specific regulations. And I'm going to give an example. What you usually see as the Conditional Grants Act, when the national government is expending money at the national level on county government functions.
And yet you complain when they do that.
What you are seeing here, at the controller of budget is being very black and white at this juncture. Because the same sword that he wants to frame the county bursaries on is the same sword then he should be able to frame the national government that is expending money on devolved functions.
So at least you agree that sometimes there's a line that both the national government and the county government crosses.
This is a shared function. It's not a line that is crossed. Legally, you have the responsibility to be able to do that. Because tell me in Ndimuli, as we speak, every county government right now is supporting students towards secondary schools and to university as we speak. In Murang'a, we are supporting all-day secondary schools students from number 1 to number 10.
It is a justification. Is he justified?
But then serving Wanjiko is enough justification to expend money. If we can, if we
give ourselves a
constitution,
we give ourselves a constitution that allows for devolved units. We have the central government, we have the devolved units. Clear functions for each of the units. Is it justified just because governors feel that the national government sometimes crosses the line in some functions that should be county functions, that they should be doing the same on functions that should be for the national government?
Fred, the fact that they are crossing and overlapping doesn't mean it is constitutional. We said before that there is what you call constitutionalism, is following the law. They don't want to follow the law. I'm sorry, Deputy Governor is a friend of mine, but let me tell you that the county government is the biggest problem in this country, especially not county government, the county governors, how they are managing resources. And let me give you, for example, I don't want to talk about Murang'a. Let me talk about a county that is coming, for example, from Luo Nyanza. Kisumu has received 240 billion shillings since devolution. Means 10, 12, thereabout billion a year, isn't it? Now, take Kisumu County as a startup. Can you tell me any company you know that have received a startup capital of 240 billion shillings and still wants more and generates nothing? Devolution was about taking resources to the people, isn't it? Are you having this field taking place in there? Port of here has taken 120 billion shillings since devolution. Now, they cannot even bring anything out of the money they're getting. And I can tell you why they're interested in education so that I don't go too much or off tangent. The main reason is that governors have a more impact in the county if they're interacting through the schools. Because I was campaigning for being an MP of Uganda. And telling him, Professor, if you take pens in primary school, you'll be more popular overnight compared to if you go visit hospitals. Because every child, if you go to all the schools, for example, in Kenya, we have 32,000 schools thereabout, primary, and around 10,000 something secondary schools. In your county, if you have visited all the primary schools and secondary schools that donated something, you are very popular. That's why there's a governor who was printing examination with their names in the examination papers. They want to give this full feeding program so that they can say they are feeding people. It is working very well. Salasa is doing construction of classes in Mumias East. And by going to each and every school, after you do that tour, everybody knows you. Because they say, oh, we saw Fred. Fred was here, like if you're comparing. Fred was here. He gave us a pen, he gave us a ruler, he gave us Githeri. So what's happening is that the governors believe that this is the best way to go. But let me now come to the intention of free primary education. When I was economic advisor to Kibaki, it became very important how primary schools were very, very impactful in what called national development, and at the same disbursing money, flowing the cash in the economy, because everybody buys a pencil, buys a rubber, buys a book. It was also a source of entrepreneurship. And when I'm seeing now schools suffering where disbursing of money is not going where they should go, it tells you the economy is suffering. That's why everybody is owed money somewhere. There's no cash movement, because when schools don't receive money moving around, there's a big issue. All suppliers.
Funding for schools is indeed a big problem about association, and we've had this discussion here, that funding for schools is a big problem. But this confusion between the national and county governments over who should be handling money for education, isn't it unnecessary?
I think it's just confusion that is confusing even those who are supposed to execute and ensure due diligence. The Constitution does not create electric fences between the county government and the national government. The services are services to the people of Kenya. I participated in negotiating the place of education in our constitution. The national functions, as far as I can understand, was to do with employment of teachers for all public schools, was to do with the national policy programs on education. And if you look at the schedule of the Constitution, it does not list even infrastructure as either being a function of national or a function of county.
Are you saying it is that grave that you do not know what the national government should do?
Just allow me. Allow me, give me space. So that then there are certain points where education is a collective venture for both national and county government. And some of the functions that the county government have been executing, like ECD, they are given to employ, but they don't control the policy. The policy is generated national, but you can generate certain aspects like feeding programs and other things. And Article 187 of the Constitution, where there are separation of roles, and we have seen in the Ministry of Health in terms of procurement, what the national government can do to support the county government.
Yeah.
I think our Constitution does not create electric fences that it restricts certain aspects. And I dare say at this point,
but if we leave it to individual interpretation of county governments, we determine how far they can go into education.
We cannot have wrong interpretations to the detriment of education. That is not right. If county government is devoting money to certain aspects of education, which are not limited by the Constitution, because, by the way, the Constitution does not limit county government from offering bursaries. It doesn't. The Constitution does not limit county government from building schools.
This allocation,
and I want to say,
is this allocation from the exchequer?
Allow me I finish. Allow me I finish my intervention. If you go to all jurisdictions all over the world, county governments or devolved units, the main responsibility is that of school infrastructure and even transport of children to school.
I get you.
And that is likely where we'll have to get into
then?
going into the future. I dare say bursaries is not
I hear you, Bwana Sossion, but my concern here is that Bwana Sossion feels that counties should be allowed to do some things in as far as education is concerned. But that is not expressly provided for in our constitution. It could be your wish.
Let me answer you. Let me answer you on that. I think what we need is further clarification in legislation. To what extent? If it is put in, it should be those activities should be protected in legislation. If you look at Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, bullet number 8, for example.
It does not override the constitution.
No.
The provisions there.
This is a proposal it makes that yes, I can read for you. Through wider consultations, guided by public participation, ensure avenues for appropriate amendments to the law to enable county governments invest in public school infrastructure.
Until then.
And that is where we are headed.
It is a proposal. As you said, it is a proposal, and it could be the wish of Kenya Kwanza
we
to go
cannot push wrong interpretation.
Let's come to...
We cannot push wrong interpretation.
We do not have a provision in the constitution to do that. Even the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto recognizes that there is no law to do it.
Even
and it proposes that there will be a law.
Let's come to more practical application of our constitution.
It could be practical.
On this subject matter.
Is it backed by law?
And that's where I'm coming. When you look at the County Government Act, the County Government Act has given the county government very specific functions and mandate at the county level, which means that it has also given a very powerful institution to the counties, which is the County Assembly. The County Assembly is elected and has the power under the Constitution to appropriate all devolved funds. Appropriate under the law, which means that
within the county government
within the county government budget, within the county government devolved functions, the County Assembly can appropriate these funds as long as they make a policy and a law backing that appropriation. This is the question.
And this is a question before you continue. Something like security is a function of the national government.
Yes.
You say the county government is at liberty to appropriate any county funds. Can you go ahead and appropriate funds?
That's why I'm coming. Remember, at the same time, once a law is passed under the County Assembly that does not conflict with the function of a national government function or a national law, it becomes enforceable at the county level.
Yet there's a conflict here already.
Let me give an example. You have asked a very good question about even security. County government, remember, they have laws that they need to enforce. That means under the county assemblies, they have what is called enforcement agencies that are regulated under the county government law. That's why you have enforcement, which are security functions. Because you're enforcing the law under the county assemblies. Same case with education. You have because remember, bursaries is not just money that is expended just for the sake. This is part of social protection, because you cannot have students who are disenfranchised in a county where money can be appropriated for that purpose. And I'm going to give you an example. Take a look at day schools across the country. They form the largest number of where students across the country go.
75%.
In fact, it's 75%. When I look in Moranga, I have 256 day schools, day secondary schools, which are in Moranga. And around the 30% that is remaining is boarding schools. Look at university enrollments. The university enrollments, 70% of students from Moranga come from boarding schools. Yet the 30% who goes to university come from the 256. That tells you, if we are not careful on how we support our day schools, then it means that the only people who can be able to afford to take their children to boarding schools are the ones who take their children to university.
I hear you.
And this is why education and bursaries is a social protection.
And you feel that function should be, the county government should be allowed to carry.
Any level of government shouldn't be barred from providing
there is no provision in law. If there is no provision in law, even the NGCDF itself has had legal challenges because it's not provided for.
But also remember, before Dr. Professor answers, remember that the controller of budget who has given these instructions is the same controller of budget who passed all county government budgets in the beginning of this financial year. He looked at the entirety of the county government budget. He saw that there was
county governments have been complaining that the funds are not enough. County governments have been complaining they do not have enough money. Health is a devolved function. None of the counties has been able to optimize their health provision. Now they are more than willing to take part in education issues.
Fred, let me tell you, first of all, I warned you earlier that when you ask somebody a question with no capacity to answer, the question is not valid. And I remain with this very position. You've tried to ask the question, they will not tell you the answer. Because the Constitution, if you go to Article 6, Section 2, says that the national government and the county government are distinct, yet interdependent. And then they said, if at all there is anything they need to do together where they need to transfer roles and powers, it must be based on mutual agreement between the national government and the county government. So unless there was a mutual agreement between national government and county government on disbursing money for education, then it can actually be within the Constitution. So there's no need of saying we are going to enact another one. American Constitution is very short and brief, but it has taken care of Americans. For us, every time we see a lacuna, and then I'm sorry when Sosion mentions the manifesto for Kenya Kwanza, because I don't think where it exists anymore. Does it exist anymore? How do we know it exists? We know it exists when it's being implemented. Tell me any single thing in that Kenya Kwanza manifesto that you see its impact on the ground. So quoting Kenya Kwanza manifesto on a constitutional provision actually is I've told you that they are unable to answer the question. So as far as I'm concerned, let's not ventilate on this matter. What is the solution forward? Education must be fixed like now. Fred, as we speak, we are in January. There's a child who is not going to go to school because of these things. There's a child whose future will be wasted because of, so it's not a joke of doing rhetorics on television. It's about what is urgent. There's been a proposal to consolidate this fund together and do it directly, because if you know the number of schools, why should money move from the governor, from the national government to the county government, then to school? If I would be president today, Fred, and I've told you I know the number of each and every secondary school and primary school, I'll tell the child, your work is to go to school. Your parents do not have to pass by the governor's office, because bursary checks are being sold, isn't it? We'll take money to school, we'll take uniform to school, we'll build the classroom, we'll be able to ensure that laboratories are working. Why should money move? Do you know, Fred, anytime money moves, it disappears. What do I mean by that? If you have 10,000 shillings and you send me money from 10,000 shillings, it becomes 9,000 and something. So moving billions of shillings from the national government to the county government, they're writing a check from there. Whom are we making rich?
But according to Bwana Sosion, who has been a teacher in this country for a very long time, and a unionist as well, the ideal situation for funding schools should include the county governments. Is that what you're saying?
It should. And we
should that be the discussion should that be the conversation we have?
It's not a question of a discussion. It's a question of the various government making the appropriate laws. I would like to make it very clear here. The Constitution is clear. I think we are trying to interpret and create complications for nothing, even where there are no contradictions. The Constitution is clear that any law that contradicts any clause of the section of the Constitution is illegal. But if it doesn't, then it's legitimate. Just like county government, if they can make laws at the county assembly, if a county assembly, say for Murang'a, can make a law on how the county government of Murang'a can finance bursaries, then it is legitimate because it doesn't contradict any provision of the Constitution. If today the county government of Murang'a makes a provision that Murang'a county government will then escalate from bursaries and begin undertaking
building schools,
infrastructure in schools,
schools.
And it is it is not contradicting in the then it is legitimate. So I think it is a question of interpretation, and is a question of, and where there is
it safe
some
to leave
clear
interpretation to individual counties to figure out how much they can do in as far as education is concerned?
Interpretation of the law is vested in the office of the Attorney General, and every county has got an office of the county attorney, so that such clarifications are made. You don't need
this one, we need
look over your shoulders. If an action that has been legislated by the counties and implemented by the counties does not contradict any provision of the Constitution, then they can implement it outrightly.
Okay,
and I dare say,
time
from where I
break.
Fred, it is time we allow county governments and county governors to play a role in education where it
All I'm saying is that probably the law should be very clear on that provision.
It is clear.
Allowing
The law is clear.
It is clear. The law is always very clear. Let's take a break. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Streaming all your favorite programs on TV 47 and Radio 47 on the go with our new mobile-friendly website. Experience the future of broadcasting. Visit www.tv47.digital or scan this QR code and stream your way to endless news and entertainment. Welcome to the home of untold stories. Are you ready to elevate your business game? Looking to pursue quality, competence-based training? Welcome to Equip Africa Institute, a TVET arm of Mount Kenya University, accredited by the Technical and Vocational Education and Training Authority and other relevant professional bodies. Equip Africa Institute has campuses in Nairobi, Thika, Malindi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisii, and Kitale. We offer a diverse range of diploma, certificate, and artisan courses in various disciplines. Here at Equip Africa Institute, we are committed to delivering high-quality, industry-relevant training that equips our graduates with essential skills, values, and attitudes for effective service delivery in the current dynamic world. To enroll, call 0785 667771 or
Hey there, friends.
0733
Welcome to Kids on the Block, where
599553.
fun
You can
and
also visit
imagination
our
come
offices
alive.
or website at www.eai.ac.ke
We dive
or
into
send an
magical
email to
worlds
admissions
filled
at
with exciting adventures
eai.ac.ke.
and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
You're going to do half cup.
Allow me to
of
take this
chocolate
opportunity to
chips,
invite all
and the
potential
other
candidates
one,
to start
you're
applying
going to
for
do
the
half cup
upcoming
of the
January,
blueberries.
April 2025
So,
intake.
grab your
And
imagination
we
hat
guarantee you
and get
the best
ready to
services
explore
if you
with us.
choose to
Join us every
Equip Africa
Saturday
Institute.
at 9
Equip
a.m.
Africa
for new
Institute,
friends,
promoting
amazing
competence,
stories,
innovation,
and
and
tons of
excellence.
laughter.
Welcome back. Welcome back. You're still watching. To agree on this issue of county governments dipping their hands into bursaries. Yes? Everyone is saying that it's up to interpretation of the law. Yet we all agree that there is no express provision in our laws for county governments to be distributing bursaries. At least we're in agreement there.
No, we are not in agreement. We are not in agreement.
Well, I'll come to you.
Let me begin.
Please,
Professor.
First of all, let me tell you the genesis of the confusion we are having in all sectors of the economy. Because if it was just one sector, we could realize maybe the interpretation, isn't it? I looked at Kenya Kwanza manifesto before the election, and I told people, if this manifesto is implemented, Kenya will be in trouble. Because I did an audit, legal audit. Fred, even if you want to do a strategy, normally we do an audit of the organization to see its legal compliance to do what needs to do. Like even now, TV47 can do a strategic plan, and fund this. If you do, you'll be violating the constitution, for example, editorial policies, among other things. So I found out that 41% of what Kenya Kwanza promised were either unconstitutional or they needed a constitutional change. And I said, that's a very risky to have a manifesto. The threshold can be 5%. And let's just start from the beginning. CBC was already operating as it was outside the constitution. Talk about G2G oil, isn't it? It was like operating outside the constitution. Go to SHA, it was like outside it. Go to anything, fertilizer, where the Ministry of Agriculture was giving fertilizer, the way it was being done. The framework of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto is the main reason why there's confusion in all sectors of the economy. Even the structural government. Look at how somebody wants to appoint what they call, I don't know, this position was called what? The ones that are below the PS is called what? Everything, Hustler Fund was also contextually framed against the Public Finance Act. So I say that 41% of the Kenya Kwanza manifesto and blueprint, even the bottom-up economic model, was finding itself with legal challenges because there is no way money moves normally from bottom going up. Money moves from treasury and it is allocated, resource allocation to everyone.
Okay.
And I said there was something fundamentally wrong with the bottom-up economic model. And even with the promises Kenya Kwanza was promising, most of them needed constitutional amendment, needed bills to be passed. That's why the Kenya Gazette was very busy in the first year of President Ruto's presidency, trying to change everything until it was like the president wants everything to look like Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. And Kenya Kwanza Manifesto is subordinate to the constitution, not the other way around. And that's why the Kenya Kwanza people like Sosion continues quoting for us Kenya Kwanza Manifesto
and we'll continue
when we are supposed to talk about legal issues.
Okay.
And let me add,
this is a direct legal issue.
No, but let me add.
Issues about the law here.
Fred, let me finish here. Let me tell you the way forward. I want to tell all Kenyans out there, whenever anybody will ever promise you anything before the election, which is not provided for by the constitution, don't elect them to wait for them to change the constitution so that they give you. Tell them that cannot work within the Kenyan constitution.
Exactly.
You see, the law, this is where I have a little bit of disagreement with Prof, because the law is very clear. You have given the county government under the County Government Act specific mandates and created institutions to allow those institutions to work. One such institution is the county assemblies. The county assembly, remember, this is the house that has the responsibility to make laws, county laws, so that those laws can guide appropriation of funds. Remember, the spirit of devolutions is to ensure that monies gets to reach, or development gets to reach to all corners of this country equally. And so therefore, appropriation of these funds, remember that the money is appropriated at the national government under the constitution, which is the county government funding, how we share revenue between the national government and the counties. That is shareable revenue. It's not money that is given by the national government to the counties. It is shareable revenue, which is generated across the country. So we share this revenue between the national government and the county government. What the National Assembly does is to appropriate under the Finance Act, under the National Assembly, to appropriate the monies that they do have for national government function. Also remember, when the money comes to the county government, when we enrich it with our own source revenue, then our county assemblies, under their own motion, under the law and under the constitution, have the mandate to appropriate those funds according to county government laws that they have, and policies that have been created at that level.
County mandate.
And the county mandate. And let me give now a clear example of now how that goes. When we are implementing now at the county government, what do we do? What's the first thing that we do? In Murang'a, and I'm going to give a very specific example, we have created an educational support program. The educational support program, this is not direct funding to the public schools of primary schools, secondary schools, or university. This is a social protection program which ensures that the residents of Murang'a who are otherwise economically disenfranchised can be able to afford to go to school. And I'm going to give you an example. Right now, we are having a large program called Inua Masomo program, and it's which I have worn this shirt today because we began it yesterday. Every day secondary school, we have picked students from number 1 to number 10. We are going to support them for a whole year.
But how do you oversight such when it's not provided for?
Let me indicate how. Because the first thing that we did through the county assembly is to create a policy and a regulation that creates that fund. And that fund is expended according to those regulations. The controller of budget, we took the budget to her, we took the regulations to her, we took the policy to her, and they said that this is okay. And the budget was approved and uploaded by the controller of budget. So when we are expending this money to ensure that every child between number 1 and number 10 in Murang'a County in Form 1 or in Form 2, Form 3, and Form 4 goes to school for free. We are not doing it in contrary to the law.
Okay. So when it comes to oversight,
in accordance to the mandate of the county government.
The Senate oversights county governments within the county government mandates, the functions of county government.
Yes, this is the mandate.
Now, when you go ahead and the counties take over functions that are not devolved, how then do you come back to oversight?
I think within, and we are discussing education, this with respect to education, and there needs to be total harmony and clarity in way of operations within this ecosystem in terms of funding. For me, I am seeing all these stakeholders playing a positive role in funding of education, because when I look at the figures, national government is wiring 50 billion in different votes to schools and to education. That is the national government. The CDF, which receives over 100 billion, almost all that CDF money goes to construction of schools. That brings a total of 750 billion. And then the county government, through bursaries, accumulates also into some billions. Before you talk of corporate institutions, the banks, and the rest. So that generally, education receives, together consolidated, close to 800 billion. This debate will lead to attrition, and it will make schools and education suffer further. And that is why there is need to clarify in legislation and ensure that there is harmony. If, for example, the CDF, the argument that it should be phased out, then probably the legislation should be revisited, restructured, renamed, so that it continues performing the duties that it is doing in terms of infrastructure. And Fred, you know, since CDF was introduced in 2003, we no longer have a RAM base for schools. The money is serving to expand the schools infrastructure.
But you do agree it is unconstitutional?
No, I'm talking as a practitioner. I'm giving you. If the bursaries that have come in through the framework of county government should not be discontinued. It should be legitimated through legislation. Let's not allow individual counties to make.
So you do agree there's an issue that needs to be worked on, as far as the laws are concerned.
That is why there was a proposal, and I still believe it's a proposal, that we must legislate to allow all actors who want to play in education, like county government. County government is more urgent than that you get involved in.
So you do agree
in the Muli infrastructure.
You are acting right now outside the law.
So don't dismiss, it is not, the problem is not the constitution. The constitution is clear.
It's clear.
It's clear.
What I have seen,
all we need is to have enabling legislation, so that
with the lack of legislation,
those with wrong interpretation,
what I have seen you have
those
done,
with wrong interpretation, like Fred here and Professor here, can read, can understand.
No, what I have seen you have done, allow me just to comment. What I have seen you have done is you have dismissed legislation made by the county assemblies to appropriate funds as inappropriate to county governments doing so. Yet, this is under the mandate of the county assemblies to legislate on what is social mandate. Remember, bursaries is a social protection. It's not a matter of taking national government function. It's a matter of social protection.
Okay.
Fred, let me tell you the truth, and they won't tell you, I've told you. because they are incapable of saying the truth as it is. Why I'm saying this...
Fred, I don't think it is right for panelists to come here and bastardize
the interest, I'm justifying.
You have invited them because they were capable to participate in the show.
The interest,
so I think Prof should be put to order.
No.
Say your points without disparaging.
Yes, the interest is very high.
Of your fellow
the interest is very high when it comes to this money, Fred. And I've told you why the interest is very high on financial education funding. First of all, the national budget allocates highest to education. So that's where the bulk of the money is.
Yes.
Secondly, the bulk of impact, because leaders want to be seen to be relevant. Some of them even want to name schools their names, isn't it? Given a chance, they'll all do that, isn't it? We are having a challenge in that manner. That's why they cannot be able to tell you exactly this is the case. I would want to tell you that I've told you why it matters in Article 6, that whenever there is anything to transfer, then mutual agreement should be there. So they should tell us that mutual agreement. They draft out the Constitution so that they cannot write everything. Even the Bible has not written everything. Even Jesus said that we can't tell you everything at the same time. The Bible also says that if everything was to be written, then the books, the Bible will fill all the world with books. So they just chose what was enough for you to go to heaven. So let's just choose what is enough to make these kids go to school. Let us not go into another legislation, because look here, how long does it take to legislate a bill in the County Assembly or National Assembly? We are in January. A kid should go to school. Go and tell their parents, wait for legislation on how money can be taken to you. And while I was quoting Kibaki and he was laughing, we are seeing parents have to go to their pocket to finance primary education. And Kibaki declared free primary education. Now we are telling parents they have to go back to their pocket to bring. That's why Nancy is very bitter here. That why is it that parents have to put their money? Okay. And it is because of corruption, right? Let us not go and say, oh, legislation. It is just seriously because of corruption, because if you want to be corrupt, why you want more money to pass through, so go here. And let me end by saying that at a time when we have a crisis, it calls for innovation. Unfortunately, Kenya Kwanza is not capable of innovating. Why am I trying to say so? We are recycling leaders, isn't it, who have retarded ideologies. They are not tired, but their ideas are tired.
Okay.
When we ignore young people who should come in, who are fresh, who should come in, for example, when you see Kabogo coming after being governor to become a CS, isn't it? Mutahi Kagwe has served here in all cabinets. Yet there are young people who are qualified who could serve here.
Okay.
We have advisors who are advising the president who are not as competent as the young people.
I want us to go back to the issue of education,
yes,
because there's a big headline on the front page of the Standard.
So education,
that
the Ministry
head
of
teachers
Education
are warning of a looming shutdown. It still has to do with funding.
Yeah, so I'm saying, Fred, innovation is needed to solve this problem.
Okay.
And innovative cannot be by recycling leaders.
Okay.
Because
Your
those ideas have never worked.
Yes.
Remember, and they won't work.
So, Bwana Sosion, there's a lot of confusion when it comes to funding for education. Clearly, there's a way you see as ideal, which includes the county governments, but you also agree that there is no provision, express provision in our laws for that. Now, there's already a crisis.
No, don't make a conclusion.
You suggested already that there is need for legislation, because it's not there right now. Head teachers are warning of a looming shutdown because of funding, delayed capitation from Treasury. With all this confusion, lack of clear guidelines on funding of schools, are we saying that even this is part of the same confusion?
There are clear guidelines about capitation. This one, I think, let us not generalize. And the Cabinet Secretary for Education released a circular the other day that is very clear. Of the allocated funding per student, first term, the government will disperse 50% of that allocation, because there are a lot of activities in first term that includes procurement of learning resources and many issues. And in second term, it is 30%. In third term, it is 20%. And primary schools are allocated over 4 billion this year. JS, junior schools, are allocated 15 billion. Secondary schools are allocated 29 billion. Those are facts and figures of numbers based on students in EMIS and allocation. The challenge here is timely disbursement. That is what is confronting the principal and is what the principals here are raising, that they might eventually grind to a halt. They are unable to provide services because suppliers are not responding to their services because of huge pending bills. So the pending bills is almost all over the place. What I would say here is that Treasury and the Ministry of Education should work in harmony so that all these monies are released before the open. The 50% for FASTA should be released before schools open. I've seen the statement by John Badi that is working to ensure that the capitation for FASTA is wired to schools by end of the month, before the end of the month.
Is this a kind of problem you would want to take over as a county? You see the delays and the kind of challenges in the education sector, but yet county governments appear keen on meddling in education. Is this a kind of burden you want to take over?
I think you have put it inappropriately to say that it's county governors meddling.
It's not meddling.
Because I want to look at it from the perspective that we are serving the same people as a nation, whether it's from the national government or the county government. And when we are in service of the people, because we do not hold this position under our own motion, we hold these positions under the guide of the people who have given us this opportunity to serve them. And when county governors sit with the county assemblies and the executive, they have a very specific mandate to ensure that, one, they bring towards development to the farthest reaches of the counties. And secondly, to ensure that they uplift the lives of the people towards their counties. When you talk about education, you're not talking about education just for the sake of supporting secondary schools. Remember, county governors are not meddling in the structure of education. We are not dealing with employment of teachers. We are not dealing with the materials, learning materials in primary. Let me get to it. In primary or secondary schools. We are dealing to ensure that the people or the students in, for example, in Murang'a and across the county have access to education. That's a form of social protection. It's not a form of getting into a debate with the national government of who should support secondary schools. No, we are not supporting secondary schools or universities. We are supporting people to have access to education. And supporting people to have access to education, that's a form of social protection. Because what we are simply saying,
the suggestion was by Bonafocion that county governments should even get into infrastructure development.
Because remember, when we are
meaning that you would want to do more
as far as education sector is concerned. When you're talking about social protection, you are providing a very specific agenda. You have to have an area where people are disenfranchised for you to have a regulations and a policy on social protection. This is such an area. Because remember, if education becomes so expensive in Murang'a that children cannot be able to afford to go even to a day school, then it means that the people of Murang'a are going to be disenfranchised in the economy, in the workplace, in the job market, and across the country in areas where they should have a leg up. So what the county governments are saying, we have a mandate under the Constitution to ensure that we protect our people socially, to ensure access to government services, not supporting, because remember, we are not buying school uniforms in secondary schools. We are not buying books. We are not building libraries. What we are simply doing is ensuring that under this model of bursaries, we are protecting our students to have the right.
But where do you draw the line?
Access that
where
education.
Do you draw the line? You might just as well build schools. You might just as well start funding teachers.
Yes, and under the Constitution, you can build a school as a county government through the Intergovernmental Relations Agreement. You create an agreement between the county government and the national government that allow you a specific mandate to build a simple secondary school, a primary school in a certain area. But that has to come in the frame of an agreement. What bursaries are is not getting into against the Constitution, it's just protecting the people to their right to access education.
Okay. Final comments, because we have about 6 minutes.
Fred, let me just
2 minutes.
Let me just take the following that I told you earlier the origin of the confusion, and I'll now give you evidence, other evidence to tell you. 2010 Constitution is not new, isn't it? This Constitution actually is overdue for review. We are now going to the 15th year. So what's the difference between 2010 to 2022 that now confusion comes in from 2020 to 2025? The difference is the Kenya Kwanza administration. That's the difference, because because under Kibaki there was no confusion, isn't it? Under Uhuru we never reached here, but Uhuru did not use another constitution; he used 2010 Constitution. There was no confusion. Why is confusion coming in a new administration? The common denominator for confusion in Kenya, I told you with evidence, is Kenya Kwanza administration, because this confusion is under Kenya Kwanza. And let me tell you another thing. I'm happy that Mr. Cecil, my brother, has acknowledged that the issue is pending bills. In public finance administration, that's called first charge. First charge, for example, Fred, when you get your first salary and you have a wife, first give her budget. If not, you'll be in trouble, isn't it? So even when you have a bank, the first charge is they take the mortgage, they deduct all your loans before you get your salary, isn't it? First charge, NSSF, NHIF, they deduct, isn't it? Now, Kenya Kwanza have reversed what should be first charge. Education is a priority, isn't it? But Kenya Kwanza has taken money where we didn't even budget. Look at what we have done in 2 years, isn't it? We have changed the cabinet how many times? When you shuffle cabinet, there's a cost, isn't it? First, of paying off those ones who are going. Secondly, of doing these parties of homecoming, isn't it? We have abduction, which was not in the national budget, isn't it? We have had mandamano. Mandamano is expensive because the security have to go to the street, isn't it? They have to use weapons. They have to use vehicles. You have to deploy. There must be movement. We have been very busy spending money on non-priorities, yet education being a priority is not getting money. And that's why we have accumulated pending bills, because people who have given service have a right for fast payment.
Okay.
You cannot be telling me you borrow me money, then you spend money on non-priorities.
You have 2 minutes.
When you leave me with pending bills. That is what is the problem in Kenya Kwanza, they lack priority.
Thank you, Professor.
I'm sure the 6 minutes are to be shared by all of us.
You have the rest.
I dare say, factually, as a practitioner in the sector and as someone who has campaigned for more funding to education, that Kenya now has met the UNESCO standards of committing at least 6% of GDP to education and at least 15% of its overall budget to education, which is at 28%. Compare the jurisdiction even within East Africa. Some countries are doing as low as 2%. And there's been general commitment to put in more money to education. And as educators, we welcome this, and we will welcome banks, we will welcome county governments, we welcome the CDF and all other streams to come to education. And I dare say Kenya now is on a threshold of delivering equitable, quality education for all through public education. All we need is harmonized understanding where legislation is required to give clarity at the national level. National legislation, let it be done. Where the counties are able to do their own legislation to operationalize certain functions which does not conflict the Constitution, let it be done. And where civic education needs to be done for certain people to understand, like Professor here, it needs to be done. Kenya Kwanza administration, I think one of its key programs, agenda, with a clear policy framework and the implementation matrix, the boxes are ticking, is education. And you can't. There is no administration that has employed 76,000 teachers in since the creation of the world. It has done it. The administration has done it well, and the indicators are there to see for anybody, even without spectacles.
Thank you.
And what the president is doing.
Deputy Governor.
As you conclude, I have to say that to get one thing right is the county governments have not expended bursaries against the law. The county government have expended bursaries according to the policies and regulations created under the County Government Acts through the county assemblies that the monies have been appropriated. So which that means that as a county deputy governor, together with my governor, when I get out of this studio, I'm going straight to, in Murang'a, I'm going to Kandara, and I'm going to Kegumo to ensure that the bursaries from number 1 to number 10 for day secondary schools have been appropriated. Today we are going to be giving 6,000 students the opportunity to ensure that they have access to affordable education in the county of Murang'a without jeopardizing our mandate under the law. And by doing so, we are going to ensure that the people of Murang'a have an opportunity to compete together with the world through the job market, through training, and through the opportunities economically by ensuring that they have equitable education. So we are going to protect the people of Murang'a to ensure that they continue to access equitable
Despite
education.
what the control of budget says.
And allow me to commend Murang'a County government for the great work it is doing in education.
Yes.
The governor, the deputy governor, even the members of parliament.
Indeed.
And Murang'a County should serve as an example for us to transform the country.
Thank you.
Let us not be talking, let us be practical. What works is right. And Professor McPherson said, if it works, then it is right. So for Murang'a, it is right. Don't look over your shoulder. If the problem is a constitution of the law, let it be done. But if the action is legitimate, continue with the action.
As long as it is within the law, you will get our support. The big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation, governors are fighting for bursary cash. And on the front page of the Standard, head teachers are warning of a looming shutdown of schools. Matters education getting prominence on the front pages today. Thank you so much, Stephen Munania, Deputy Governor of Murang'a County, for your time here at TV47 this morning. Wilson Sosion, Mwalimu, a former SGKNUT and also a former member of the National Assembly, and Professor Fred Ogola, governance and economics expert. Our panelists this morning helping us understand the big headlines for matters to do with abduction, NIS, and education as well. After the break, we'll be talking matters oral health. Yes, oral health care in pregnancy, a very interesting discussion. Dr. PJ Murioki will be in studio for that conversation with my colleague Ann Odida. My name is Fred Indemuli. Good morning.